All right, let's rip. No chance. We're waiting for the entire shot clock to run out on this one. Very important guest today. Lots of money and time on the line right now. I can't be burning it with an intro like this. Hayden Winks is joining us. You guys all know him and love him from all the good stuff at Underdog Network that they're putting out and the fantasy football Underdog Fantasy channel now. Yeah, Hayden, appreciate you doing this. What's good, my friend?
What's up? Yeah, I'm very excited for this show. Obviously, we have BBM4 launching on Saturday. Very excited for that. And we just come off a wild draft, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around on some of these landing spots. I think there's a lot of kind of iffy landing spots, sadly, for this year, but maybe that means ADPs are a little bit lower than usual. And we all know that sometimes these rookies just bust out of those landing spots anyway. So very excited to be here.
Like it. Yeah, so obviously the big thing everyone's top of mind is BBM4 is on Saturday. I'm an idiot. I thought the draft went through till Sunday and BBM4 was dropping the following Saturday. Yeah, it's nice that we're doing this now just for my sake to get fully prepped and caught up here. But everything top of mind right now is total prize pool. Then the total guarantee was released. Then the structure was released, or the top prize was released. Then the structure was released, and it's what everybody's talking about right now. So it's amazing that you can.
I haven't seen. Yeah, I haven't seen any of the comments.
Yeah, right. It's amazing that you could come on. I don't want to make you a spokesperson for the company, but I'm gonna make you a spokesperson for the company here. First of all, what kind of goes into it? Do you have any input, any say in are these conversations that take place over a calendar year? Are you guys sitting at Super Bowl and the cameras go off and everybody starts talking BBM4 structure behind the scenes? What's the vibe?
There's so much that goes into this. And like you said, I'm not a spokesperson for Underdog, nor am I a decision maker at Underdog. We don't need any of that. There's so many layers to this. We think about Best Ball Mania so far in advance. Like there's already discussions about Best Ball Mania 5 and so on. Like it's such a huge part of our company and our identity as a company. So yeah, we discuss it throughout the entire year. There's ideas being thrown out there all the time. There are so many people that have ideas for this. So to think that I have much say in this at all is quite frankly insane. I'm one small part of this. I'm here to do some podcasting, but obviously like I'm out here in the streets looking, giving feedback, all that type of stuff. So I have my hand in the dirt to it to some degree, but I am by no means even close to a final decision maker on any of this stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. When it comes to that, like if you were to push for one thing for whether it was this structure or structures of the past or going forward, what is something that you really wanted to see come out of this contest and the structure?
I'm not going to give any spoilers. There'll be another contest that comes out eventually, and that one I will be taking credit for. But yeah, I mean, with all this stuff, yeah, there's different layers of this. I would say like my role with this is just being a part of the industry and seeing what could work, what could not work, what the feedback is, kind of some of the game theory elements and all that type of stuff. So I would say that I'm just in there to throw out some ideas, and then it's basically everybody else's job. And certainly not my job to come up with the actual structure of any of this stuff. But I'm here to walk through it if you guys would like to.
Sounds good. I kind of want to see, we kind of attribute like the company side of it and like play like the benefit of the doubt is that they always want those high, clean prize pool numbers at the top. They always want these nice round figures. They always want the top heavy. Is that safe to say? Is that like a goal of everybody, or is that just by happenstance?
Well, when it comes to the sizing, like we are obviously think that we could fill or come close to filling a $15 million. And that's like the big thing to us is how big can we make this thing go? So obviously there's been so much growth in the industry, and all of $15 million are obviously guaranteed with this. So yeah, I mean, obviously there's marketing that goes into all of this stuff. This is a young company trying to grow, certainly. So that's certainly part of the discussion. I wasn't part of those discussions at all, so I don't know the exact intent for any of this stuff. But yeah, I think most of the kind of industry standard when it comes to best ball, and not even just best ball, but DFS and all this stuff, is it's going to be fairly top heavy. That's just kind of what it's expected. I don't think that BBM is too crazy from that. Like 20% to first place is basically the industry standard here. And obviously it sounds very cool for us to be able to say this is the biggest best ball tournament ever. Even the playoff prizes, the most playoff prizes of all time right now, which is $10 million just for the playoffs. So there's a lot that goes into it. And to be honest, I don't even know the final decision maker exactly what they were saying. So I really don't want to speak on it, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean that I think there's just something so beautiful about saying like this is definitively the biggest best ball contest ever, and the fact that it's the flagship contest of the platform, being able to say that is so cool, so great, and I can imagine it's such an emphasis.
For sure. The only other thing I'll say with this is once you are like getting to the size that we're talking about, like it's going to be impossible to please every single exact person. So like that's just like part of the thing. So we'll walk through it. But yeah, that's like very clear once, and there's like some like other interesting aspects of best ball. Like, should you have $50 million just for like a small portion of winners and stuff? Like there's some scaling aspects that probably come into play that I don't think everyone's necessarily thinking about. So yeah, we want to scale this up, and this will also not be our only tournament offering. So there's going to be plenty of stuff for everybody.
Was there any thought to changing it from a $25 point? We've seen the $10.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have no idea.
It was something that we discussed just because we'd seen the $10 price point do so well in like baseball and stuff like that. And maybe lowering that barrier to entry was what would expand the prize pool. But the fact that you guys got to 15 million and kept the price point the same is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, everyone loves the puppies at $5. So it's just kind of playing a blending game. And I think part of like a $10 to get to $15 million total, that's so many entrants. And I think part of the feedback is like, do you want to go into a finals with 4,000 other people? Like, is that a good experience for people? So part of the reason why is just if $25 is what has worked for us in the past. So don't really necessarily want to probably change that. And then also like keeping the finals in like the 400, 500 ballpark seemed like a good experience for a lot of the people involved there. So some of this is scaling, but at the end of the day, I don't know if they ever decided 25, 20, 10 or any of that stuff. All I know is what's worked in the past is the $5. People love the puppies, and the Best Ball Mania has grown really well at the $25 price point.
Love it. Yeah. And I think like just temperature check, I think the feedback has been very positive. Like just in terms of what we've been seeing, like I think people really like the regular season breakdown. I think people really like the way the distribution of prizes is and understand it. Right. I mean, that's just how I feel.
I think there's been some confusion on like what exactly it is that we can probably clarify a little bit, just because it is new, and like that this is kind of expected. Like when there is some changes, there's going to be some pushback just because it's a new topic and people like to stay where they are. But I think part of what makes underdog is we're going to experiment a little bit, and you have to take some chances with it, and that will end up being a good thing in the long term. But I really do think that this is going to be very fun. And I think the more time people kind of sit on this idea, they're going to start realizing what actually it is and the strategy elements that come into play. And there's also like more of a sweating element that I would love to talk about as well.
Okay, cool. Maybe then I'll just bring up the structure. Do you want me to bring up the tweet of the original structure or the sheet that I showed you?
I think the sheet works. Yeah, I think the sheet works.
Okay, cool. Nobody has ever accused me of being the smartest man in the room, simply just the loudest. So if there are some mistakes here, live with me. But I think I nailed it. We'll see here. Did I make it better or worse by zooming in there? We good?
I can see it.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so total entries we arrived at. This was going off of if you guys haven't read yet, Hayden put out an article on Underdog Network, and the total entries figure, there was some speculation there. We were getting numbers of 767 or 766, something like that, and the actual number is 677,376. All right,
sounds
there
good.
We go. Yeah, so total amount of drafts is 56K ish. Which brings the total prize pool about 16.9 million, which makes the rake 11.4% instead of 11.3 last year, which is negligible in my mind. 15 million guaranteed, 10 to the playoff, 5 to the regular season winner. And that means that 16.6% of the total prize pool is 16.6% of total entrants will make the playoffs, and 1.5% of total entrants will get some money from the regular season there. Before we go into the advance and stuff like that, Hayden, anything to just say on the overarching?
Yeah, so I think the best way to think about the regular season prize is it's basically a bonus for the truly elite teams in the regular season. It is not a min cash. I've seen people try to pretend that this is a min cash. The min cash is actually for the people that advance, that 16% that you're talking about, almost 17% that you're talking about. This is basically, if you are the top 1.5% in the regular season, you're going to make at least $250, but all the way up to the $500,000 to first place there. So this is a bonus for the truly elite teams. And I think some of the reasons why I'm in favor of this personally is I think a lot of people playing fantasy football come from setting your lineups for the 3 months of the season. Obviously, a lot of the money is being delayed to the finals. But I think that part of the discussion is sweating your team for every single week throughout that. And to me, I was just thinking about this the other day. The bit has been, don't talk about your best ball teams for the 3 months until you get there. That's probably not a good thing, right? Like, a lot of the people trying to play fantasy football are plugged into the industry during that time. Like, for us to be able to talk about best ball during this, I think it's going to bring in new users. It's probably going to help grow the industry. And I think everybody that is a part of Underdog wants more users on there so we can have more and more prizes, different offerings, and all that thing. So I think that part of the discussion from weeks 3, 4, 5, all the way up to week 14 is going to be helpful here. And now there's 10,000 people are going to get a bonus before they get into the playoff rounds. And I think there's a little bit of a discussion about how that's going to smooth out the variance for the top elite teams. There was some feedback that we got that people would be frustrated that, man, I had a really, really good team. Then week 15 happens, something goes wrong, I don't advance, and I basically was sweating this team, but I had 1 week of an actual sweat. Now we have 14 weeks of sweating, checking the leaderboards, and it's big enough, 10,000 people, where if you are throwing 15, 20, 150 lineups at this thing, hopefully you have a chance to be a part of that sweat.
Yeah, I really like that. It was, I don't know if you probably didn't see on Wednesday there, we were doing a draft preview with Pat Corain, and we just happened to go live 20 minutes before this drop. And basically everyone, let me know if I'm speaking on behalf of you, Numi, but basically all of us kind of had the same thought process. It's like, wow, we have seasoned sweat equity. That's a good thing, because you're right about the shtick, like the fact that, I wouldn't check my best ball teams. And like Davis Maddock had a really good point on his show with Rudman on the Takecast there, where he said, yeah, man, like it's just kind of found money at the end of the season if I happen to get anything back from best ball. I think this changes that in a very good way, not to mention frees up added capital for certain players to then enter playoff contests, to enter daily contests. So for the ecosystem of the site, I love it. For the sweat equity of the players, I love it, because now all of a sudden I'm checking my rosters in week 11. And for the casual player to just be sitting there who has for instance, I always use my cousins as an example on this show because I got them in Underdog and they spend, $25 a year, right? Like that's their jam. And for them to have a little bit of sweat equity worth checking that team all year long, well, now all of a sudden that casual user is checking that team in week 6, week 7, whatever. And I do think that is really good for the game in general. Numi, you agree with that one?
Yeah, I was in 100% agreement there. I loved it kind of just right off the bat. And without going into strategy, I thought, like I said on there, immediately just my mind, it broke just the strategy aspect of it's like 2 different tournaments in one, and how the regular season gets paid out. And then you have the playoffs as well. So obviously that goes into a whole different strategy talk. But yeah, that was my just initial 10-minute reaction of just sitting on that of the show. Yeah, I'm totally in lockstep with you there.
There definitely is a strategy component that I think is good as well with it is I don't think we want this thing to go stale, best ball. Like, I think that there is some layering to some of the strategy discussions, and like the game was definitely not solved before this, but always just being able to think one next layer through this is going to be interesting. And I think that some of the strategy components, like, I don't think that this like completely changes things because, like we mentioned, like only the top 1.5% of teams are going to be benefiting from this regular season. So it's still
Right.
about upside. I'm guessing that everyone's still going to be going out of the way to try to stack. Now, I think maybe you don't have to stack for exactly week 17, though I think that's probably still very beneficial to do. But there could be some components about, all right, which type of players do I want to be drafting? Do rookies become less valuable? Do the injured players become less valuable? Do they become more valuable because other people are going to be playing for the regular season prize? And I think that there could be I'm going to double down for week 17 because other people are not going to do that. So there's just a little strategy element to this that I think we've introduced, which I think is going to be good, because I think part of like what's fun about best ball is, one, you can win massive amounts of money. That's obviously evident here. And that's very exciting for people. We love the draft experience on the app. That's definitely into play. I think preparing for best ball drafts even before you get to the lobby is a lot of fun. That's why you guys watch content. That's why we make content. That's why everyone is in these discords. So I think adding another little element of strategy and a little bit of debate is not so bad. And I think that the last part that we already discussed is the overall sweat experience. If you can have more days of sweat, I think you're going to get more bang for your buck, and there's going to be more people that have a chance to win a couple $1,000s here and there too. So I think bang for your buck is like a big thing for this, and adding to the sweating experience and to the debates, I think, is part of that. And I'm pretty happy that we did that.
Yeah, I like that. I like that bang for your buck, because something that we've talked a lot about here is, it's kind of like a phrase that Nez coined, is the return on fun, or return on your fun investment, like stuff like that. Because, like, we like to do this full sicko shit where it's down this rabbit hole of, where's the leverage, where's the EV, where's the let's run calcs and all this stuff. But for so many people, it's just return on fun, right? It's the reason they're going to watch football every Sunday. And I think we kind of lose sight of that sometimes in this niche little bubble. So I do really like that. And I do think adding this sweat really justifies the $25 price point for recreational users. Because for recreational users who are just playing like the puppy and stuff, now they see like, hey man, there's more opportunity to get a little bit of that back. I'm not as apprehensive to pay that little premium to be in the big contest, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit for everybody. I think at the end of the day, it's still going to come down to upside. And I think there was a little bit of an overreaction to that. And maybe I didn't like communicate it enough in my post. And I edited my post a little bit to kind of clarify some of it after getting some of the feedback. It's really just, it's not making this less top heavy. I don't think that anyone's really necessarily asking us for this not to be top heavy. The min cash goes down a little bit from $35 to $25, but most of the feedback that we got is people don't really care about the min cash necessarily. We want a good sweat for the people that actually have elite teams, and some of the people that were really frustrated from drafting a good team just to get 1 week of sweat. We realized that could be a problem, and introducing more actual weeks of sweat is probably going to be a good thing. And if people like the experience of, oh, I had a good regular season team, I think those people will be rewarded too. But at the same time, week 17 sweat, it's still $10 million last time I checked. Like, because there's a regular, like, there's plenty enough money for the week 17 sweat to be a whole lot of fun. So for that is the record right now, is $10 million. So I think that the week 17 sweat is still going to be a whole lot of fun. And that's going to be for 440 people. So I think that if you do make the finals, you actually have a real tangible, like, going into that Sunday, you actually feel like you have a chance here. And I think that was part of how we like decided the advance rates being what they are. Because you can like really balloon this thing out to like have a lot of people in the finals. But I think a lot of people that were in the finals last year appreciated that it was kind of the right number of being able to have some unique teams in there, but also actually having a chance to actually make for this year, it'd be the $3 million.
Yeah, it's crazy that there's 3 million up top, and there's actually 29 less teams or something like that in that finals bubble as well. The min cash going to 25, I'm totally fine with. We've seen this play out at multiple intervals now in our daily contests. It's something that they've switched and experimented with in, correct me if I'm wrong, Numi, the cycle was the first one they messed around with it, where it was min cash for, I can't remember. I was talking to Mamba about it the other day. I think it was the cycle, but it's something that, like, the volume guys are like, hey man, I'm just getting the min cash back. And it's like, well, you know what? It actually structurally plays pretty well over a large enough sample, because we've seen it in the dailies be effective and fine. So I was less reactive than I would like to say the overarching community was. I think one of the big critiques so far has kind of been like the disparity between first and 10. I think that is kind of where people's eyes go. And I mean, realistically, it doesn't much matter for everyone. It does, but it doesn't. Like, it's going to matter for like 10 people at the end of the day. But what was your thought about that, Hayden? Do you think there's a little bit too much disparity there? Do you think it's necessary? What do you think?
I think that this was kind of expected that there'd be some feedback with this. I think this kind of just goes into like the business, what has worked in the past historically for the industry. And I don't think that this is all that different from what people are used to in DFS. So I think there's more time for people to really look into all the details of Best Ball Mania 4. And we are appreciative that people are taking the time to actually go through this. That's probably a good sign for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously some people would have different opinions on this. So we'll see. But the $15 million, it's 20% to first place. And we're trying to smooth out some of the elite teams just from getting eliminated in the first round and feeling bad about that. So I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the bang for your buck. If you're going to add more sweat to this, I think that's going to be a good thing. And the decision making that you're going to have to go into these drafts, I think there's going to be some debate around that. So I feel like if you make week 17 finals, I feel like you're going to be pretty happy with there being $10 million in the play.
Absolutely. I think we could talk about a couple things, because we've alluded to the strategy notion here so far. What is kind of like your macro strategy shift? I think one of the beautiful things about the contest is it keeps a lot of the stuff that the industry has kind of like developed and thought about. It retains that information as still evergreen, but still adds a wrinkle to it. What do you think that wrinkle is? How does that come into play? How does the regular season prize pool come into play in terms of like actual draft strategy and building teams and stuff?
So my opinion on how I would build teams is I would still 100% have week 17 in mind. Like, there's $10 million of this. It's still a large majority of the prizes are going to these teams later on. So I just think it's just going to be, you're playing for upside, like even more than before. You are playing for upside. So I think that the quickest way to do that is to not reach on players necessarily, but also more importantly, to stack your teams appropriately. And there's a bunch of content out there. You guys have it. We have it. Everyone else has it. Stacking to me is going to be very key here. I think week 17 is still going to play. You can definitely build a week 17 lineup that is perfectly stacked, that happens to do well in the regular season, and vice versa as well. So there will be different people that have different opinions on this. I think that at the end of the day, it's going to be like, pick the best plays, which is like, we can't say now, but there will be a Josh Jacobs next year, and the teams that drafted Josh Jacobs will be rewarded this next upcoming season. But at the same time, it's going to be the Josh Jacobs teams most likely that were stacked properly and that got good closing line value and weren't reaching on players. The basic principles, I think, still really apply to this. So I think that you can most certainly draft for week 17. And if a lot of the users are instead looking at the regular season prize, I think some of the week 17 bros are actually going to be pretty happy that they can instead double down on their approach while everyone else kind of pivots. So at the end of the day, it's really about upside. That's what best ball is. Like, that's like DFS and best ball. It's upside, upside, upside. And I think stacking is definitely the clear way to do that.
Love it.
Yeah. What you just said there with basically taking advantage of what I just heard is basically people are going to construe this different ways, and you're going to get into draft rooms middle of summer, and you're going to have people constructing teams for this, and you're going to be able to take advantage of that in your drafts with values. And it's the same way you can do that in dailies. That's how my brain works, is people auto drafting, people doing an exploitative way, leaving values for you that you can get. It's people playing for different goals in different ways. And again, that's what this opens up for other people to do. And I agree with you. The shooting for upside is going to be the key. And this just in another element of strategy that's going to be really fun.
Here's another way that could happen. You could be looking for week 17 and then you're building it, and then in round 5, round 6, that quarterback or that bring back option that you really needed or really wanted for that week 17, you get sniped on. Now you can pivot and say, okay, now I'm going to be taking some of these veterans that might tail off, and instead of, I was planning going for week 17, but now in the middle of my draft, just based off of the board has fallen, I'm pivoting away from week 17. Now I'm all of a sudden in the middle of my own draft going to have to pivot, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to take some more chances on the players I think that might project better for weeks 1 through 14. So I think there's going to be layers into this, like once the draft starts going, or maybe it's the inverse and you're like, okay, no one's drafting any of these rookies because everyone in my draft room right now has kind of been focused on the regular season. And all of a sudden I'm just going to be like, okay, I'm just going to hope I hit on the right rookie that at least gets me into the dance in the top 17%. And then I'm going to have a backloaded team. So I think there's going to be more strategy elements that people haven't thought about because we just announced this. But I think once the draft starts going, we're going to start seeing people pivot their strategy based off of the way the board's falling. I think that would probably be pretty sharp too.
What do you think that, I mean, I think that's a really good point. And I think it's just something I haven't thought through yet is like, how would you cater a strategy like mid-draft to shift then to like a regular season prize pool mindset versus the playoff stuff? Like, is it just simply foregoing week 17 correlation? Is it chasing that ceiling? What do you think?
I mean, there's probably so many different layers to this. I think that it could even be as detailed as once we have the schedules, the division opponents that play each other twice before week 14 ends. Like you're getting correlation between those teams. Like those teams would be correlated better before the regular season ends there. So I think there's going to be a lot of different layers. And just basically take the inverse of what when we started this in Best Ball Mania 1, when stacking was important, but not necessarily week 17 wasn't kind of the narrative yet. The change was, all right, we're going to stack teams that playing each other, and we're going to definitely want the rookies. I think now it's basically the opposite. Like Adam Thielen is starting to become a little bit interesting compared to like somebody like.
Don't tease me like that. Don't tease
like
me with Adam Thielen mattering.
Who knows? We'll see what happens here. But at the end of the day, I think that there's going to be a double down effect that people can have with this. Is if you see somebody that's building for the regular season and you disagree with that, if you're right, now there's a compounding effect to that. And I think that's been introduced this year because of the format compared to last year.
Yeah, I think that's pretty sharp. I think I like that there's something new, but we didn't deviate so far from the original, right? Like I think that's the beauty of it.
Like, by the way, I have no. If this happened, it would be totally fine. But I don't want all my damn charts to be completely thrown out the window. I mean, I'm the guy that's in these streets talking about some of the stuff that's mattered historically. I would be down horrendous if we completely changed it. But I do think that introducing new strategy elements is going to be good, and it's just a way for this not to go completely stale. And I'm not saying that every single one of our tournaments is going to be brand new like this. Like obviously, we're probably going to go back to the basics on some. We're gonna have such a plethora of different offerings out there, but I think that this is a fun new slight little wrinkle that changes things maybe just minorly. And I think there's going to be some people out there that argue that this hasn't changed basically anything, that I was always building these teams this way, and maybe other people are going to overreact. But just the fact that you have this debate and this decision to make, I think does make the game a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think we're all in lockstep there. One big noticeable thing about the advance rate stuff, still 2 of 12 out of the regular season, but now instead of 1 out of 10 in week 15, it's 1 out of 16. I tongue-in-cheek threw out a tweet the other day that week 15 is all that matters now.
Yes.
Is there some merit to that? Is there any possible caveat of thought that we will be optimizing for advancing in week 15?
The answer is it matters more this year than it did last year. It doesn't matter enough to keep it in mind. If your brain is big enough and you can balance every single little part of this on how much, then awesome for you. I think it's probably going to be pretty challenging, but there's definitely, obviously, when it's now 1 out of 16 versus 1 out of 10, it's harder to do that. So you have to have your scores better. So obviously adding correlation in the event of the game stacks is going to help you out there. But if you're building for week 15, does that mean that you can't build for week 17? Do you want to build for week 17 instead? This is the debate. Everyone else has their own strategy with this. There's been research on this, and I've seen sharp people on both sides of this equation. So that's kind of on each individual user to kind of figure out. But certainly, like, if it's next year, if it's 1 in 25 in week 15, then like now it's even harder. So you're gonna have to correlate more. So like all that stuff definitely matters. But this was like if we don't do this, then all of a sudden there's going to be a lot more people in the finals. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily what we want.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with that. It's interesting because you said it off the top of the show there that, if you went bigger with a low price point, that all of a sudden we could end up with like a 5,000 team final or something like that. Maybe for a different contest, not for the flagship BBM contest. That might be something just to like give some thought to in general. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat right now that I am not smart enough to read and speak at the same time. But a lot of stuff that has been like kind of commonly stated is like some high dollar, like 3 max or 4 max, 5 max tournaments, stuff like that. That's a common one. A single entry has been thrown around. One for me that has been kind of like, I don't know if it's feasible legally, is just to have an uncapped tournament because
illegal,
like,
it's 150. That's like industry standard regulation wise.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with individual cap. I'm fine with individual player cap. So 150.
You mean
entries.
Like if it just keeps going and going and going?
If it keeps going, you guys guarantee, it could be as small as guarantee $1 million prize pool, and then just let it infinitely fill. And then every dollar added to that just increases the prize pool minus rake.
Okay, yeah, Rudman's in here. It says it still has to be a set prize pool. Yeah, this
still has to be.
Rudman's way more in the weeds about all this regulation stuff. I'm a podcaster, so Rudman's going to know all the details about that stuff. But these are fun ideas. Like keep throwing more ideas out there. There will be some things that pop up that maybe we can implement.
Yeah. And I mean, the fact that we talked about this before, because our understanding was always like it had to be a guaranteed number or whatever. So the fact that you guys threw out a $15 million guarantee with that first like initial tweet, it was like, holy shit, like that we're going for it right now. This is the structure. Anything else structure wise, Hayden, that we haven't discussed, want to hit on? Any strategy elements, or do you want to go ahead and talk about last night and the draft stuff?
Yeah, I think I'll just recap kind of like what we went over. Like, in my opinion, the big difference is the regular season prize. The way to think about it to me is like, it's a bonus for the best teams. It's not replacing the min cash. It's not the min cash. It's like not the only sweat that there is. It's just reallocating to reward some of the best teams out there and to introduce more actual weeks where you're actually sweating. I think that's going to be good for you. After you spent the $25, you're going to get more bang for your buck, more entertainment value based off of that. And maybe it's going to introduce more eyeballs so we can get rid of this bit that there's literally, you can't talk about your best ball teams for the NFL season. Like, think about that, guys. People are saying, do not talk about it when everyone else is plugged into fantasy football. We can't talk about best ball. That can't be a good sign. So I'll leave it at that. It should be a lot of fun. And there will be, if you disagree with me on any of that stuff, totally fine. We're not going to please, what was it? Almost 700,000 different people entering this thing. To please all of that. That would be quite the perfect structure for all that stuff. We'll have different things for everybody. But I think that once we digest this a little bit, I think there will be a lot of strategy elements that have never been talked about before. I think that's going to make this a lot of fun this year.
Love it. Yeah. I think that's the best caveat you could say. You're not going to please everybody. We like what we're seeing here. I think the majority of people will like what they're seeing here. And the regular season sweat equity is so great because best ball has become a year-round game, right? But the problem with it right now is it's all in this window. It's not in the actual football window. And I think that changes this. And I think there should be, talking about some sweat mid-season, and it shouldn't be, pull the FBI out. I mean, we're going to start shaming Pete. We're starting a new movement here, and it's hashtag always sweat. We've been never sweat. It's a hashtag always sweat. I'm changing. Good. I'm flipping the script. The cops are coming for Hayden. The cops are coming for me. We're sending the cops to Pete's house because we're going to have him sweating by week 5. This is the goal.
And if you need more sweating, cardio club. We're out here on the treadmills. We're on the Stairmaster and stuff. So Underdog is definitely get your ass to the gym. Rudman's the perfect spokesperson for this. We are about sweating physically, mentally, entertainment wise, anything that you can. We're introducing the sweat. Everyone get on the Stairmaster, damn it.
Love it. Pete and I have been chatting a little bit about that, and I'm hearing murmurs and rumors that more than just Deposit Kingdom and Badge Bros and stuff are going to be joining this movement of the cardio club. And for anyone who's here right now, it's going to be our job to outperform them. And I'm going to be part of that. Like it's going to be Badge Bros times Deposit Kingdom versus the world. That's what we're pushing for in cardio club. Like nobody's beating my ass on the Stairmaster. I might even get some toe shoes. I might do it.
Yep.
Let's move into the draft last night. Congratulations to you guys. You had almost 12,000 or 1,200 live. 12,000. What'd you have last night?
We're around 1,200 the whole time. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. If you guys haven't seen Trill and Coley are awesome, and it was very fun to do some crossover with them. It's kind of a good balance for us. Josh and I sometimes maybe a little too serious at times. I like to mix it up every once in a while, but with Coley and Trill there, it got off the rails, but it was a lot of fun. We threw up some highlights. If you want some actual analysis on things, we have all our YouTube videos going over like the prospect videos and how it fits and all that stuff. But it's good. It's good to be part of the community, the live chat and all that stuff. So we had a blast, and but like literally afterwards, I was drinking a little bit, and there was so much going on with the chat. I had to go back and make sure reset my rankings like late last night to like make sure I actually understood what was going on, because once you're in the chaos of it, and there were so many trades, damn it, that I was like really kind of thrown off the scent.
There was like a lull. I feel like it hit. I forget what pick it hit, but all of a sudden like it was chugging along, and then I texted my dad, and he's just like, "Whew, it's gotten real slow here. Like they're really wasting the clock." And all of a sudden it was like, we're Vikings fans, and he's like, "How long is it going to be till 23rd?" Like it seemed like it hit the 15th pick, and then just went, "All right, now we're going to milk and milk and milk and milk." And it was like, "Oh my goodness." That stream was great. Listening to them live sweat the Celtics Hawks while you guys are there, and trying to figure out what the reaction. It was great. It was great.
I could never figure out Coley if he was actually like mad about the selections, mad about what we were discussing, mad about Josh's vision cone takes, or actually just the Celtics.
He was just mad at John Collins, which was hilarious.
Yes,
it was so funny. It was great. Yeah, that was a great stream.
These NFL draft videos have been great. Like on each individual player there, those have been great, because like for someone who watches a little bit of college football, does these drafts, and is kind of following everything and isn't like deep in the weeds with each individual prospect like you guys. I mean, they're just a godsend to watch 8 to 10 minutes on each given player and just be like, oh, I get it now. They did the research for me. So for anyone who hasn't checked those out, I mean, I'm sure if you're watching us, you're watching these, but just bring those up for a second there. Cool exercise that I kind of want to emulate with you on the fly. I don't know if you've had a chance to read Tom's article yet, or if anybody in the chat has yet. I will add the link in the chat. But Tom, friend of the show, now doing some writing over there at Underdog Network, is basically predicting based on the first round here and landing spot. He's doing the exercise that we all want to do, which is where will these closing line ADPs end up? Given the new landing spots and that. Have you read it yet, Hayden? Because if you haven't read it, I'm not going to bring it up because I don't want to jog your opinion yet.
I press the button to submit this thing. I have scanned through it. I give it a thumbs up. Let's walk through it. I love Tom too.
Okay, cool. So I think we'll just start at the top of the draft board, and we'll start right there with Bryce Young. And just kind of, I think this is where we all thought he was going. We all knew what was up there. Knee-jerk reaction to his value this year and where you think his BBM ADP kind of settles to start.
So I think just generally the quarterbacks found great landing spots and the skill position players found bad landing spots. And that's going to kind of introduce where the quarterback might be a little bit deeper than what we thought going into this. Now, like Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson have their ceiling, but they actually at least have a chance for upside rather than like the Derek Carr kind of tier. Bryce Young in particular, the Panthers have a pretty good offensive line, and Bryce Young it could buy some time himself, but I think that he's actually just going to benefit from having a strong offensive line. I have him as my quarterback 19 to start. I'm guessing that's kind of where he was at the end of the last tournaments that have closed. So I think Bryce Young is going to be like a upside quarterback too. And the good part about Bryce Young is he's going to be a secondary or third stack because his wide receivers go so late. There's not really a tight end that goes really early too. So I think what's going to happen is the week 17 guys are going to love Bryce Young and the Panthers because you're going to get your top stack. Let's throw out like the Ravens, for example. And then once you get to like rounds 8 through 14, now you can find your secondary stack with the Carolina Panthers. So Bryce Young also very debated prospect in general. If he's going to be healthy, I think he's going to be good. If he can't stay healthy, then we can run some problems. But like we said at the top of the show, we're playing for some upside. I think that Bryce Young definitely offers a little bit of it.
Is the health risk associated with him primarily because of his stature
and playing style? I think it's the combination of both. Like he plays kind of like Patrick Mahomes, where he's scrambling around and doesn't necessarily stay in the pocket, which he kind of leads himself into pressure sometimes, but he's so good at finding the spot, and he keeps his eyes up downfield. He's not necessarily looking to scramble. He'll dance in the pocket a little bit and then still be able to throw the ball over the middle. There are some weaknesses because of his size. I think he stands on his feet, his tippy toes a little bit too much, and he kind of lacks some of the arm strength at times, but his pre-snap processing is kind of like Joe Burrow's is, and that's why he probably went first overall. But to me, it's him dancing around in the pocket and then potentially meeting some defensive tackles that could be problematic. So we'll see how he goes. I can see this thing kind of going either way, but he's in a good spot. I think just coaching staff wise, Bryce Young's a smart dude. He's going to be grinding his ass off, and the offensive line I think is pretty good.
Love it. I love this line in the chat. Hayden might say a joke, but I'll never tell you a lie. I love that so much. Some cardio club love. Yeah. Okay. So best possible guess right now, each of us, his starting ADP, BBM3, both total and quarterback number off the board.
This will be a game for you guys.
Okay. I would say the 160 to 165 range, quarterback 16. Numi?
Dude, I haven't done an NFL draft in so long.
Since last year.
Yeah. Literally, I did one.
Here, I'll go. I'll go
ahead.
just like my personal rankings is like so quarterback 15 is like Geno Smith. So we've like already escaped the Dak Prescott's, all them. Then it's Anthony Richardson, Aaron Rodgers, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Russell Wilson, Jordan Love, Kenny Pickett, Derek Carr. Like I think in the middle of that is kind of where I belong. I think all these rookie quarterbacks will be like right next to each other, which is going to be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll throw out 150. I'll throw out 150, and we'll do QB, like I don't know what it's gonna be, 16, 17, like you said. I don't think it's gonna change too much. I think
I'd rather have Geno. Right?
I'd rather have Geno.
Yeah. Geno feels like the tier break.
That offense is so
last night.
Man.
Yeah. All right. Tom has him at 130, which is QB 18. So he has quarterbacks going a little bit earlier in his mind than we do there. Next one, CJ Stroud. A lot of smoke and mirrors there with the Will Levis stuff. What was your reaction to that? Were you buying that? I know you were team Stroud at 2. But do you think this is the right pick, good fit, and someone who's going to be viable for us in BBM?
This was the right pick for the Texans. I think it's a quietly decent landing spot. Like obviously their wide receiver group definitely needs some help here. But the offensive line's got some talent, man. I mean, they got like interior and offensive tackles already ready to go. So, and this is part of the 49ers scheme that's been very efficient. So we'll see. It's obviously a very young entire staff. Like some of the offensive line's fairly young. The coaching staff is fairly young and inexperienced, and CJ Stroud's really young himself. So there could be some growing pains here, but I think the landing spot was actually good. And the Texans certainly made the right decision here. I mean, I never really bought Will Levis. I put a second round grade on him. And like, I watched so much Will Levis and CJ Stroud tape going into those videos that I felt pretty confident that you really couldn't tell me that you would take Will Levis over CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud, man, he's just a really good prospect, super accurate. So I think it's a good spot for like Nico Collins to get involved, John Mechie to get involved. Maybe there's going to be another wide receiver rookie that slides into the Texans, but I think that the Texans are also going to be a pretty cheap stack to add on, similar like what we had with the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, especially get a little healthy Nico Collins, healthy John Mechie back, something like that. I mean, hopefully he's doing well. I don't know what his recovery is
It
like.
sounds like they said that he's they're calling him 100% that they expect him to be out there. So he was kind of like a slot and outside player. I'm guessing he's going to line up in the slot. They have Nico Collins, and hopefully they add like a Jonathan Mingo or Cedric Tillman out there. But they can kind of go anywhere. They can go back to just a primary deep threat, kind of replacing Brandon Cooks. So I'm hoping we get one more spot for CJ Stroud to help him out. And I'm not sure if we need to see much more Robert Woods. I love Robert Woods, a USC guy, but he's a mentor guy at this point.
Fair enough. Yeah. Actually, this interesting with the Texans is I was kind of low key hoping that when they made the trade with Arizona, that instead of the first going back the other way, or it'd be like a protected first, and then they took the salary dump of DeAndre Hopkins back. Like that would have been so poetic. It would have been
DeAndre retires immediately. Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's hilarious. And by the way, that trade up, I think Will Anderson's gonna be very, very good. It's almost impossible to project a rookie or a prospect to be worth the 12th pick, the 33rd pick, and a future first round pick. And that most likely that future first round pick is going to be a top 10 pick. So like he has to be like Lucas Van Ness, Felix Nduke Uzoma, plus whoever a top 10 edge rusher in next year's class. So it's a lot. It was a bad decision. So right when you think the Texans made the right decision with Stroud, they come back and they're still the Texans.
Right. Yeah, that's so well put. We can see here that Tom has him at 165, which is QB 22. Are we all in agreement that he will start below Bryce Young?
I would guess so. It seemed like everybody kind of like is in favor of Bryce Young, and there were some people that were like very against CJ Stroud. By the way, the S2 test didn't really end up mattering. I guess once you're on the clock, you're like, I'm going to trust the game against Georgia might matter a little bit more. Yeah, I'm guessing that Bryce Young will start ahead of CJ Stroud, probably close ahead of him. If he's going 165th overall, I will have a bunch of CJ Stroud in our employee contest.
I like that. It's pretty funny, the S2 stuff. I can't remember who was someone, if it might have been Coley on your guys' stream, or I was watching the ship chasing one at the same time last night. And someone said that like his score was the equivalent of like the SATs just writing your name and walking out of the room.
100%. Yeah, there were some stories. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be saying them, but there were some stories on potentially why that happened. But I think Chris Ballard definitely went out of his way, and I respect him saying this. In his press conference, he said it's bullshit to be dragging these prospects through the mud and sharing some personal stories and stuff. Like you're asking these players to do something that they've never done before, and then you're using that as ammo. I think that's pretty unfair to do. And I think what happened with CJ Stroud is the Texans, the Colts, and the Titans all were trying to rally to get these quarterbacks. And there was definitely probably a tier break between Stroud and the rest of them. So they were all probably throwing out these smoke screens and talking shit on CJ Stroud to try to get him lower in the draft, especially now that we know that the Texans were potentially moving back up. So I think that was just really bad. And I wouldn't even be surprised if CJ Stroud, the bad stuff was coming from the Texans camp, because they wanted him to fall a little bit, so it'd be a little bit easier for them to move back up. I agree. This was some bullshit. CJ Stroud was so good. He's a nice dude. Some of these character concern stuff seems so ridiculous. Like he failed a test. Like, so what? He threw 40 touchdowns. And we don't even know if that S2 test is even predictive. It's pretty nonsense to me.
At least he doesn't put mayonnaise in his coffee. So.
Part of the reason why I was down on Will Levis, there was actually some reports about personality fits with him, and Will Levis isn't a bad dude either. There's just like some like interesting aspects to him. So I thought it was very interesting that CJ Stroud was the one catching all this heat, and Will Levis was a god throughout this process when I was hearing kind of different.
Right. It's weird, man. Like, cause it's like one of like kind of like just the 101 rules in life is to build yourself up. You don't have to drag someone else, or to build somebody else up. You don't have to drag someone else. And that kind of just like, it's such a 0-sum game with the draft that shit just goes out the window. Right. It's kind of, it's toxic, man. Yeah. Really let's just throw out a quick number on Stroud. I think this is a pretty good one at QB 22. Where did you have him on your list so far, Hayden?
I have him as my quarterback 18. I also am like a massive CJ Stroud fan. I would have taken him first overall personally. So I'm going to be betting on my evaluation of him. I agree with Tom, though. I think Bryce Young will be going ahead of Stroud.
Okay. Interesting. Numi, you feel similarly?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think this is my favorite of the bunch here. Just the
everyone's
wild card.
favorite.
Yeah, the wild card ceiling. I mean, Crane's ran so damn hot for the last couple years that he's even running hot in the big board contest where he comes out with Anthony Richardson 40 whatever percent, and then he just smashes the absolute nut landing spot for him to play right away. But what's our read on Anthony Richardson here? Is he your favorite in terms of BBM opening ADP as well, Hayden?
Hell yes. I mean, we're talking about upside. Anthony Richardson is the god when it comes to upside. We talked about it on our show a lot. His processing, he's inexperienced. So there's sometimes where like a zone backer is going to get him. He's definitely a little bit inaccurate at time, but his ability inside the pocket, it was extremely underrated. And I was not surprised at all that he went fourth overall and well ahead of Will Levis. He's so young, but this dude just like has like these instincts that are like, I think probably hard to teach. Like he just has a feeling for when an edge is going to be on his back, and he can maneuver around the pocket. We don't have to talk about his athletic ability. Everyone knows that. But you get this guy with a new coaching staff. He's so inexperienced. Like he wasn't like some high school god. He wasn't like going to these Manning academies his entire life and stuff. Like he had the COVID year. He wasn't a starting quarterback. Like if we get some of his mechanics figured out, we're talking about somebody that I think can even transcend Josh Allen. There's a chance that he can be an MVP candidate. It's not going to happen this year, most likely, but the upside here is at an absolute insane level. And I'm very happy that he goes to the Colts, because you put Gardner Minshew right next to Anthony Richardson throughout training camp, and these coaches are going to be like, all right, what exactly are we doing here? So I'm expecting Gardner Minshew to play a couple games, and then in comes Anthony Richardson for the meat of the season. And he's going to be like Justin Fields, I think, as a rookie. Wow. Running all lot, but there's a chance that his processing, his like speed and his instincts are even better than Justin Fields, who I also loved. But Anthony Richardson's like legit very good in my opinion.
Has the knock's always been the accuracy, right?
Yes.
Like that's kind of like the knock,
and it's bad.
Okay, yeah, but he was only a starter for one full year at Florida, right?
Correct. And I go back to, is accuracy fixable? And I think that the answer is yes and no. If you were a prospect that was always supposed to be the guy who, like if you're working out with some ex-NFL quarterback all throughout high school, you were a 5-star recruit, you went to the Power 5 program, and you had all this coaching staff nitpicking your mechanics nonstop, and your accuracy is still bad, well, guess what? I just think that you don't have it. Then you have the guys like Josh Allen, who grew up on a farm in the middle of California, was not recruited by anybody, goes to Wyoming, enters the NFL young, and he has accuracy problems. Well, maybe he just didn't have the same exact coaching that these other guys get. And I think that Anthony Richardson's closer to the Josh Allen tier, not someone like Will Levis, who was supposed to be the guy, was working at Penn State, was working with NFL quarterbacks at Kentucky as well. And he still has an accuracy problem to some extent. I think Anthony Richardson's accuracy is very bad right now, but I think it's a little bit coachable. And I think that we should expect him to grow a little bit more similar to like Josh Allen.
I like that. That seems like a lot of fun to bet on. What is the difference in making this bet and making the Trey Lance bet 2 years ago?
Trey Lance got steamed because he was running an under center offense that was using play action, and he was changing protections at the line and all that stuff. And that was very intriguing, especially to like the Shanahan tree, because they want to run the ball, and it was a very good scheme fit for him. Trey Lance had some of the same issues that Anthony Richardson has, a little bit, some accuracy issues. I think that Anthony Richardson is just a much better athlete than Trey Lance is, and Trey Lance is a fantastic athlete, but I think that there was a big enough sample at Florida, obviously against tougher competition, where Anthony Richardson in shotgun was able to manipulate the pocket a little bit more, and Trey Lance, he was basically a turn your back quarterback for a lot of it. And I think I would rather have a little bit more of the playmaking special sauce that Anthony Richardson has. And I think that he just had slightly better instincts. And that's just like very hard for me to kind of articulate. But if you watch some Anthony Richardson, like it really pops if you can ignore some of like the flat passes that sail out of bounds. But like watch his pocket movement is really special.
Okay. Yeah, that's great insight. Numi, what's up?
No, nothing. There's some news that just kind of happened in the last 10 minutes in the NFL. I don't know if it's smoke and mirrors itself, but Antonio Brown just tweeted, excited to return to the NFL next year. # Ravens flock with a Ravens picture.
I'm going troll.
I'm going
minus 250 troll.
100%. I put it in there. but just immediately in the last 10 minutes, just blowing up absolutely everything I have for notifications and everywhere, like every like just tweets and I'm just like, okay, what's going on here? Like AB. I'm like, what?
Have the Ravens
yeah,
said
just
anything?
look at this. Let's look at this. It's so funny. I'm sorry. I mean, that's so
At least
funny.
he's got half a shirt on since the last time we saw him. I mean.
The comments in there are great,
Oh
but
my gosh.
that's incredible. That's incredible. He's just out here just living his life.
Wow.
Let's throw out the hard-hitting question here. Are we drafting Anthony Richardson ahead of Trey Lance to start this best ball season?
Oh, I think it won't even be close.
Wow. Yeah, okay.
I have Anthony Richardson like as my 100th overall player. Yeah, to me, is he going to break let's throw out some names here. Daniel Jones, Dak Prescott, Tua, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, Geno Smith. Is he going to break into that tier? And I think eventually the answer to that will be yes. And
yeah,
I think that he's going to
do the Goff jump.
Yes. Now what's kind of interesting, and I haven't like dug into the numbers on this, but just kind of like a theory of mine is when we are playing for upside, obviously the quarterback, the rushing potential like equates or equals to upside, which we want in best ball. But the pocket quarterbacks, if you can get a breakout season like what the Rams had or the Bucks, if you're right about the passing breakout season, then all of a sudden you're bringing the wide receivers that you're stacking with. So you're getting like 3 or 4 of your picks correct. With Anthony Richardson, if he goes off, there's a chance that only one of Alec Pierce or Michael Pittman get there. So I haven't really dug into the details with that, but something I'm trying to like think about, like if Geno Smith goes to become a top 5 quarterback, then all of a sudden you might have 3 or 4 pass catchers that you're bringing along with your best ball team. With Anthony Richardson, just might be 1. So something to consider, but Anthony Richardson will get hyped. I would be shocked if his ADP drops. I think his ADP is going to go up. And we already got the coaching comments after the draft saying that they want him to get reps. And like, that's exactly what he needs. Like, go grind out. They traded Stephon Gilmore away. The defense is nearly isn't as good as it was. Like, go out there, get some reps this year so you can start competing in a couple years.
Beautiful. Yeah, no, I like that. That's as Chris is saying in the chat, that's spicy. I like that a lot. I think it's a really good point about like running quarterback upside alongside versus pocket passer in tandem stacks there, which brings me to the question. I mean, I don't want to go super far down this rabbit hole. I just want to kind of rapid fire it. But do you think this has such a negative impact on a guy like Jonathan Taylor that Jonathan Taylor drops to like, you know, end of second, start of third round kind of territory?
Well, Jonathan Taylor's interesting because he wasn't as reliant on the pass catching. I do think there's going to be a factor where Jalen Hurts, like he's going to be taking some of the short yardage, and Anthony Richardson certainly will take some of the short yardage. We've got to remember, like, it wasn't just Shane Steichen who had experience with Jalen Hurts. The quarterback coach was coaching Kyler Murray, who had a lot of success in the red zone. And before that was Cam Newton. So they will have a plan in place for Anthony Richardson running the ball in short yardage situations here.
That's like the greatest combination a running quarterback could like come into in terms of previous coaching scheme. Wow, I did not know any of that.
And he's just as fast as Kyler Murray and bigger than Cam Newton. So like, I mean, I think I don't think we've thought about this enough. This could be some of the most exciting playing that we've ever seen. Even if he's still inaccurate, there will be some special moments this year. And I'm so excited for Anthony.
I can already see him airmailing a pass, and then big Jelani Woods just like, no, I got it. Don't worry. Just out of, like, he's got some huge targets to miss out there.
Yes,
like big targets.
That's big time.
Yeah. Okay. Like when you were naming off things, like immediately my mind when he I mean, I already kind of envisioning this is like, where does Jelani, like obviously this is but Jelani Woods is immediate someone that I'm just like, that's fun because just little short passes value.
The closing line value on Richardson's going to be insane because he's going to start in this like QB like 14, 15. We are going to see him, you know, get some steam after the preseason once people get a look at him. And like he's going to get that Trey Lance level steam and he's going to close as like quarterback 8, 10.
Trey Lance.
I mean, maybe not 8, but like
it's going to be like a bigger steam than Trey Lance. Like I feel like it might take a little bit to maybe fully get there, or it could immediately get there and taper off. But it's going to be Trey Lance and then some. And it should be. It's warranted, I think.
I think you get all the way up to like Deshaun Watson tier. Yeah, I think there's a chance that he gets there. If they announce that he's the starter like right away, I I don't see what's preventing. I don't think he'll ever get to the Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. Like we know that those guys are ballers, but I think he'll fly past Tua. Daniel Jones is like a worse version than Anthony Richardson's. I think that he can fly past him as well. So I think we're going to start low, and I would be surprised if the ADP ever sinks back down. I think it's just going to be a rocket ship all the way.
Wow, the hype train's heavy right now.
Scared about Gardner Minshew though?
I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm never writing off. I'm never writing off a dude who tried to break his own hand, Numi. I'm not. I'm never writing that off.
Yeah, you're right.
This is such a fun pick. We're gonna have so much time to talk about this stuff. Hayden, we're at an hour right now. I just want to make sure that you don't have
I
like
can
a hard
go
out.
forever.
Oh, don't tempt me with a good time, buddy. Let's go on to Bijan. So much talk before about the quote unquote legendary upside potential of him. My knee-jerk reaction was this was the best landing spot for him, just in terms of like how much usage he is going to get. Obviously, we saw it with Algier last year. I think it was very strange that Atlanta took a running back here, but it was very Arthur Smith. What were your reactions? Is this actually a good landing spot? And is he viable conversation piece for running back 1 off the board this year?
I don't think that you can put him ahead of Christian McCaffrey. There's certainly a chance that he ends the season ahead of McCaffrey, but I think that there's going to be a tier break McCaffrey than everyone else. I think the conversation is Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Bijan. That's going to be the tier that's going to be at the round 1-2 border.
Okay.
Bijan's going to be super efficient. The offense isn't going to run that many plays, and their touchdowns are going to be a little bit kind of wonky. My fear would be that they like Tyler Algier still, and they want to mix him in. And my fear would be like the Jamal Williams role or something like that. But I think at the end of the day, Bijan Robinson was a special guy, and that he's probably just going to make Tyler Algier irrelevant. So in my initial rankings, I have him at 10th overall. And I think the general landing spot was decent. I think there could have been maybe a couple more. Like if he had the Texans, he would get all of the workload for sure, and maybe catch some more passes. But I'm certainly not complaining here. If you get a running back selected in the top 10 NFL draft, it's time to boogie.
Yeah, I like that. It's odd to me that like kind of the thesis we've talked about with like building teams. It is kind of like you get these cheap rookie deals for running back and cheap rookie deals for quarterback. And it's kind of weird to see that Atlanta and the Texans both hit on that like cheap running back. Mm-hmm. And then, they were kind of both in the conversation to take Bijan as well. Yep. I mean, I guess that's just taking player profile ahead of like overall team thesis. Yep. Yeah, it's just very
Michael Carter, Breece Hall. If you have a
good point,
and Michael Carter had a good rookie season. He's very efficient. Same thing with Dameon Pierce and with Tyler Algier. Your draft capital sticks with you. That's what they said. They thought you were a replaceable running back, and you could get got. So Dameon Pierce can be the same thing. They can take Zach Charbonnet, and then all of a sudden Dameon Pierce is adios. So that's just what happens with this. And then even the freaking Lions,
that's next.
They'll rug pull David Montgomery after paying him $18 million. So it's just part of the game.
Yeah, that's confusing to me. Is they can do that with a journeyman RB set like just wreck on fire. Just do what they did, have all that, sign David Montgomery, and then sink the capital into Gibbs. I'm just like,
They could have done this with Jamal Jamal made like $6 million, and Jamal and Jahmyr Gibbs are perfect complements for each other. So it's just very confusing to me.
Yeah, I think this would kind of be like everyone's Twitter reaction is the fact that this was kind of like the quote unquote worst pick of the draft.
Yes.
Kind of is like the consensus. But in terms of like fantasy, like we've coined Coors Field, or we've coined Ford Field, the Coors Field of fantasy now. Like I think this is kind of just a super fun wheels up spot. I think everybody and their dog expects them to move on from Swift now, and a lot of smoke and mirrors fire where he could end up Cincinnati. I don't know. Like that's
the problem with DeAndre Swift is the NFL thinks he's not good and not tough or not reliable, doesn't hit the right holes and all that fun stuff. So he's going to get moved. When I'm going through my rankings for Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, I'm pretending that DeAndre Swift does not exist for them. Okay. So it really just comes down to like size. Who's getting the goal line touches? Like, is David Montgomery Jamal Williams plus? Because David Montgomery can catch some passes. Is Jahmyr Gibbs kind of in the DeAndre Swift role? Looking last year, DeAndre Swift was still like 21st in fantasy points over replacement per game at the running back position, and Jamal Williams was top 10. So you can still probably squeeze out both of them inside top 24 rankings. I'm still kind of like thinking through this. But I always thought that Gibbs was going to be a low touch player, but highly efficient, especially in this offense. He's gonna have some monster games. So I think he's like a better version of DeAndre Swift, but DeAndre Swift was able to probably carry a bigger workload. So I always thought that he had an easier path to like a top 5 finish. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. I think I'm going to have Montgomery and Gibbs really close to my rankings. And I had Montgomery well ahead of Swift, like going into this.
Is the Gibbs Kamara comp lazy?
Yes. Gibbs is faster than Alvin Kamara. They both have, like, I would say, equal pass catching chops. They're like both very good at it. Alvin Kamara's contact balance and ability to break tackles is much better than Jahmyr Gibbs. But Jahmyr Gibbs is like closer to like Raheem Mostert, who can like catch passes. If you get him on one little sliver of space, he's taking it all the way to the house. And Alvin Kamara can do that to some extent, but Jahmyr Gibbs is better at him at that and worse at like scoring 5 touchdowns in a game. So I think the easy way to think about this is Jahmyr Gibbs is like a good version of like what DeAndre Swift is, and there's some pros and cons to that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure there's ever been a team that hated Swift, a player more than the Lions hate Swift, right? I mean, it's just kind of wild. This is kind of a fun one from Bob here, Swift to Philly. For the problem with trading him now is you've lost all your leverage by signing another running back and taking another one in the top 15, where they took him at 12 or whatever. Every team in the league is now thinking, if I'm smart enough on this show to be thinking that they've lost their leverage, I'm sure the GMs are thinking the same.
Yes.
Well, he had a hilarious quote. Like
this was good.
Yeah, I don't know. Yo, you saw it? Yeah, it was
funny.
so he goes, Brad Holmes. Yeah, I mean, DeAndre is still on our roster. He's still part of our team. He's still under contract with us. He's a dynamic football player. So the Gibbs pick hasn't really changed the math there yet. But, it's early.
Yeah.
Okay.
What a ringing endorsement.
Yeah. We want this guy on the team. We do. That was funny to see. So,
I like what Tom. Yeah, that's crazy. I like what Tom's done here in terms of like, hey, if there's only 2 in that backfield, I like him at 22. If there's 3 in that backfield, I like him at 32. I think this is an ADP that I will like to get ahead of on the field early. And then kind of as he, skyrockets a little bit, I will tether off my exposures. That's my knee-jerk reaction to Gibbs. But I do like this settling in the early 20s, mid-20s idea. Are you guys in tandem with that?
I got him running back 24 right now.
Okay.
I think there will be plenty of people that love Jahmyr Gibbs. Like the people that are in the dynasty streets really love the math, and the math always is saying get the pass catching running backs. I was on the other side where it's like, I just want the size. Like all the top performing running backs are fairly big. The exceptions are like kind of Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, who both put on a ton of weight in the NFL. Jahmyr Gibbs hasn't done that yet. So do you think he'll go ahead of David Montgomery? I mean, everyone hates David Montgomery, so I'm assuming the answer to that is yes.
I assume would be yes. Yeah. Just because it's the name, you see David Montgomery versus the flashy new toy, and it's being Jahmyr Gibbs, that people would just,
David Montgomery.
Maybe my dad would take David Montgomery. Like if he was in the draft, he would be like, no, I'm going to take.
I will have a ton of David Montgomery then.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I'll buy the dip on him. They still paid him well. He's going to have a role. Both running backs can get there at a 20s ADP. And if something happened to Jahmyr Gibbs, or if Jahmyr Gibbs just James Cooks the situation, there's a chance that we've seen this offense could support a top 5 running back. And David Montgomery, debate about the tackle breaking or the speed or all that stuff. He has the body type and the skill set to handle a big workload. So there are paths to David Montgomery being a top 5 running back. And going back to the ceiling case about Best Ball Mania 4, I think that you have to have some of these James Connors, Josh Jacobs buy the dip on these like veteran running backs that are still valued pretty highly by the league. And the fact that he got $18 million in this landscape tells me that the running back, or that the NFL still likes David Montgomery.
I like that call, the hashtag follow the money narrative. Yeah, this is a good point from Silas that Monty was going ahead of Swift in the previous ones there. And then, yes, I like this, the James Conner cheap one, because they gave him a bunch of money and they don't have much else to run through in that offense. Thesis being the same there. Anything to say on Gibbs, or are we good to move on to JSN?
What a waste, the Lions, man. That and a linebacker, they could have traded up for Anthony Richardson. Like, there's so many ways that this could have been better.
When you can have Jared Goff as your franchise QB and run with it, you got to do it.
Gosh.
And Jack Campbell, just such a what pick? Like, I mean, he's not on anybody's board up that high. If you're going to do something like that, you probably still could have traded up in the previous spot and then still got him with whatever the return was in the late second, early third kind of spot, right?
I think they trade down, and I think GMs, if they either have an extra pick or if they traded down just before, they kind of can justify, hey, I'm just going to get my guy, screw positional value and stuff. I already did. It's like if you had a salad for lunch, and then I'm just going to have 2 ice cream sundaes for dinner. Like, that doesn't mean that you should eat 2 ice cream sundaes for dinner. Still, make a good pick. Have a chicken bowl or something like that. Because we're still got this cardio club to hit on.
Yeah, damn straight. I love that. JSN, kind of everybody's, as the draft window kind of came to a close, I think he was almost everybody's consensus WR1. It was interesting to see him fall into the 20s. I don't think a lot of people had that. Yeah. So
close. I was literally banging my fist. I'm like, just trade up. Just do it. Show me a Viking straight up, and it's JSN. I wanted it so bad.
Yeah, I mean, it could be Seattle, kind of like a lot of mouths to fill now, but like seems like they could be a lot of fun. Tyler Lockett getting a little longer in the tooth, I guess, but is still productive as all hell. What is your knee-jerk reaction to the JSN spot?
Bad for his median outcomes, probably still pretty good for his ceiling outcomes. Okay. The Seahawks want to pass the ball a ton. That's just been their stance. Russell Wilson was holding them back. They wanted to pass more, but Geno Smith's just better than Russell Wilson. And
the irony in that statement a year later.
So gold. Yeah. I think there's better landing spots in this for Jackson Smith and Jig, but the ceiling case is still there, and you can still definitely stack them up. I think Metcalf's going to slide a little bit. I think Tyler Lockett's going to slide a bit, but they all complement each other perfectly. Like, just the downfield threats from them on the outside with JSN over the middle, and Geno Smith loves attacking the seams over the middle, and that's where JSN could definitely eat. So I think it was okay. I think the Vikings landing spot, I think, would have been better, just target competition wise. But JSN's so good and reliable, and they had no depth at tight end or wide receiver, that I think that he'll end up being okay. But I think Tyler Lockett's ADP is the one that's going to actually suffer from here. He's going to be all low volume, high efficiency, but even to a bigger extreme. And he, like you said, he's 31 years old and refuses to pick up any yards after the catch, which I quietly love.
I like that. Now, do you think we'll see kind of like a flipping of JSN going ahead of Tyler Lockett for sure then?
Yeah, I think Tyler Lockett's going to stumble a little bit. He's always kind of been underdrafted, and I think that's just going to be the case here again. Geno Smith, though, I'm going to love Geno Smith.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, especially with a pass catching running back like Ken Walker, right?
You're telling me on day 2 of the draft last year, and you make the Geno Smith, man. I'm just sitting here just you're absolutely, what are we talking? Geno Smith, that's what a difference a year can make. That's incredible. That's incredible.
That goes to the point about if you can find the offense that is going to reach an upside or break out through the air, you're going to bring up multiple of your picks. So using the Geno Smith example, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett pay off, and Ken Walker pays off because Ken Walker catches a couple more passes than expected. The offense is just better. So if you can find the breakout offense that's going to break out through the air, all of a sudden now you have 4 or 5 of your draft picks in Best Ball Mania 4 going up the leaderboard. So the Geno Smith example from last year was kind of like this theory that I'm trying to articulate.
Love it. Yeah. And then you couple that with the pass rate over expectation that we saw from them in the last 7 weeks of the year or whatever. And we were building Geno doubles in every daily contest. Baby. Yeah. Geno was the fucking poster child for our stream for 2 weeks. It was just kind of oh man. So do you guys think this ADP 45 WR24 that Tom has given him, does that seem accurate to you guys? What do you think?
I have wide receiver 26. I think this is about right. I don't think I'm gonna have like a strong JSN take. I don't think.
I would assume 50. Like that would just just give an even 50, give or take around there. Like just looking at where DK and Tyler, and I think it would Tyler Talk is gonna just fall within however long it takes to update. I don't know how it shakes out initially where it comes out, if he's still 5 spots behind or what ADP it takes. But I think it quickly shakes out where he moves ahead of Lockett.
It could be another year where we're looking back at this and being like, hey, we did this with Tyler Lockett last year, right? It was like, oh, Gino, oh, no, it's like whatever. Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
It feels like that. Like, it feels like he's getting the Jarvis Landry treatment, in fantasy, where it's like, hey, we know this guy's good. He's just kind of boring as hell with a couple spike weeks, and that's all. And then all of a sudden he outperforms those peripherals every year and stays healthy, even though he's undersized. Like, it's like, oh my God.
Wild guy.
You guys don't think D. Eskridge is going to find his way into those slot snaps there? And
they tried.
They certainly did. Oh man, Freddie Swain going to find his way onto the field. Quentin Johnston to the Chargers spot. I think everybody in their heart of hearts, when they saw this outside of Seattle fans, were seeing this board shake down, and they were like, "Oh, please, please fall to the Chargers." JSN, that is the perfect Keenan Allen future replacement. It's the perfect put him alongside Keenan Allen for 1 year. What do you guys think about the Quentin one?
I'm curious what you think, because I have like tons of takes.
I mean, from what I've seen with them, I like it. I think it's just another weapon for Justin Herbert, and I'm shocked that they actually did it, because I just feel like their overall is just like, we're gonna let Justin Herbert cook with what he has, and we're gonna give him the Packers treatment and barely add anything to him. So when I saw it, and then the run of receivers going on, I initially liked it, and then what I did, I have your show on mute, and then I quickly turn it up, and then come to like, all right, what do they have to say about them? So no, you take the floor, because you did the months of research for them. So I'm over here with guys hitting a baseball over a fence. So don't ask me.
I think this is like JSN. The median outcome, I think, is lower than where I would like, but the ceiling case is obviously very there in this offense. Quentin Johnston, I think, is somebody that needs some development. Like, I don't think that he trusts his hands. I don't think that everyone in the Chargers organization was on board with this either. I think that the wide receiver coach, like Addison, I think that there's a chance that Brandon Staley would like someone like Zay Flowers, and then Telesco is taking the long-term approach and going with Quentin Johnston. He is not an X receiver, but the good news is he doesn't have to be, because that's what Big Mike's going to do. I think that he was going to struggle against press man coverage. In this offense, he's not going to have to deal with that. The downside case would be Josh Palmer's pretty reliable, and is Quentin Johnston in year one going to earn like the playing time? There could be a little bit of a rotation. So I think he's going to be very frustrating, but there's a chance that my film evaluation is completely wrong and that he just blows up, whether it's because Keenan or Mike Williams gets injured. So I think the approach I'm going to have is he'll be on my board when I'm stacking the Chargers, or in week 17, whoever the Chargers are playing, he's going to be on my board. But I think that other people are going to steam Quentin Johnston in ways that I will be fading. And the price points on the rookie wide receivers are high enough now where it's not just like blindly just pick every single rookie wide receiver. Like, we've price adjusted for that. And actually, a lot of the worst picks in the draft last year were some of the rookies. Now, some of the best picks are also some of the rookies. So I think that it's okay to have like a film take or a player stance take with these rookies, because it's basically 50-50 that they're either going to be really bad or really good. And my current lean is that it's not going to work out for him this year.
Interesting. Okay. I have 3 little kind of like follow-ups there. I kind of like him because Steve Smith likes him, and Steve Smith was the only dude on planet Earth who liked Cooper Kupp, and I'm holding on to that one. Right. So I like that aspect about him. I'm glad that you said the X thing, because in my mind, he was the only quote unquote big body, bigger framed style wide receiver. So I just attributed him as an X, like just given his stature. Yes. So the fact that you said that's pretty eye-opening to me, because I had no idea there. So I'd like to reiterate that one. And then I got a question for you. Does this flip with, because you said you're kind of treating him as Chargers third person stack kind of stuff. Does this flip his ADP with Joshua Palmer? And does this render Joshua Palmer somewhat irrelevant in terms of our stacking potential?
Yeah, I think Palmer's going to slide in the draft where he was last year, where he was going earlier, obviously. And I think that this could be a spot where you draft Palmer really late as a stacking partner. Yeah, Quentin Johnston, he's like more of a finesse wide receiver, but in that X body. But in this offense, he could be a screen guy, especially if Austin Eckler gets used. Like his yards after the catch ability is pretty good, but I think they're going to hope that he's going to be a downfield threat. So we'll see what happens. He's going to have to go compete with Josh Palmer, who's not the easiest or the hardest guy to replace, but they were using Josh Palmer in a lot of ways too. So I think this could be something where
professional wide receiver.
He is out there in a starting lineup, and I think that's okay. So I think Quentin Johnston might be like a late breakout guy, but doesn't really produce all that much early on. Or I'm wrong, and I've been plenty wrong before, and he's dominating immediately. So we'll see.
Yeah, I like that. Also the addition of Kellen Moore there, right? Like just the fact that we've gave him so much. Your doppelganger. We've given him so much praise in what he did with that Cowboys offense, and then we see McCarthy come in and try and set it back a couple generations. And now he finally gets to go with a quarterback who can. I mean, Dak's good, but like the ability, the arm that Herbert has to push the ball downfield, and they have treated him, with kid gloves and not let him do that in the past. To expand that offense vertically will be like a beautiful thing, and I hope Quentin Johnston plays into that. Zay Flowers, Ravens made a lot of noise yesterday. Lamar definitely needed an agent to get a deal done there. He definitely did. There was a little bit of talk about a DeAndre Hopkins trade. Instead, they sign OBJ and fill the void with Zay Flowers. Not to completely rule that one out. Probably the best pass catching corp of Lamar's career now with Flowers, OBJ, Bateman coming back, and then the two tight ends. One of which we know is elite, and the other in which we think could be. How does Zay Flowers fit into this offense? Do you like the landing spot? Is he going to be viable in year one?
I love it for the Ravens. The Ravens, I think, are going to have a pretty big change in offensive philosophy. Monken is one to throw the ball. Now, I don't think that he's going to have the same passing numbers and pass attempts as Monken's had in his previous stops. I still think the Ravens are going to be middle of the pack when it comes to pass attempts. And there is a lot of target competition for Zay Flowers, especially like in the red zone. He's on the smaller side. So he could be somebody that like pops on like yards per target basis, but maybe doesn't see the field as much in some situations. But I love the fit for the Ravens. He's going to play in the slot. He's going to be a yards after the catch threat. We'll see what they do with Odell Beckham. I'm guessing Odell is going to play the X, and then you're going to have Bateman as the Z, and we'll see what happens in two wide receiver sets. But I think the two wide receiver set thing is going to be something I'm going to be grinding every single day in the summer, looking for the Ravens beat reporters to see if he's going to be in there, because like you said, this offense historically has wanted to play with two tight ends. And if Zay Flowers isn't going to be a part of the red zone stuff, it could be a little bit harder for him to score a bunch of touchdowns. But I think people are underestimating Lamar Jackson's ability in Best Ball Mania 4. Like, he can be a top 5 player overall, especially if there's pass attempts go up. So I'm going to be drafting Lamar Jackson. So then it's going to be pick your flavor between Zay, Odell, and Rashad Bateman. And I don't think I have the answers to that yet.
Love it. I don't think I have the answer to that yet. I think my inclination is I want Bateman over the bunch and then mix and match the other two. But I don't have a leg to stand on with that yet. Yeah.
Numi, do you think, I'm guessing Zay Flowers will be the first one drafted, but I don't know. Everyone seems to love Zay Flowers. I was kind of fading the hype with him a little bit. So I'm guessing Zay Flowers goes one, but I'm not sure if Rashad Bateman still has a lot of support, if people still like Odell Beckham. So I'm very confused. I'm very excited to see what happens with ADP.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like the shiny new toy always ends up if you play it out, maybe not right away, like I'll say, but if you give it July and August, the flippening will happen. And then again, it takes, like you said, one report. It takes one tweet, anything about, look at the connection to this pass that Lamar made with Zay Flowers. And all of a sudden it's like, it's Flowers over Bateman. So just strategy wise, it just seems like take the cheapest one. It's just how my brain works. But I could see Flowers definitely being the top option here, especially if you just get 1-2 positive things during training camp. It's wheels up. That's just how these markets work, especially with rookies.
Yeah, with that in mind, Numi, is Zay Flowers someone you'd want to get ahead of market on right now?
Yeah.
Or yeah, you think so?
So if like that's one thing that it's like I'm going to try and do is just look at these guys and identify people that I think that are immediately going to just skyrocket up. I think ADP is have a daily or something like that. So get a few drafts in, check that out. But yeah, identifying these guys that are going to go up versus a Tyler Lockett and these veterans that you can kind of wait a week or two or something like that, catch them at a falling value. Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely one. Same thing with Anthony Richardson. That's someone I'd want to get shares to very quickly before all of a sudden you're sitting there with like, oh, I have a share and he's moved up 40 spots or something like that.
Right. The Corbin Carroll thesis.
Yeah, these are the type of guys that I would like to get my exposure to quick and have a good amount of them in exposure rather than just be, SOL and then all of a sudden they've moved up 10, 20 spots. Not that you still can't draft it, but it's nice to have.
Yeah, you're looking for that closing line value.
Yeah.
I got one more theory real quick with Zay Flowers is I think the wide receivers that get picked after the quarterback in ADP, and the Ravens would be an example here, get steamed up more because everyone's gonna be going out of their way to stack and people are going to reach for the stack. So since Lamar Jackson goes ahead, and if you missed out on Mark Andrews, like all of a sudden, like there's a sense of panic. Oh, I don't want to burn this team. And all of the wide receivers are going to get probably steamed up a little bit more. So rather than like if the wide receiver is being picked before the quarterback in ADP, there's not necessarily a reason to stack, especially before we get the week 17 schedule release, where people, there's not like a bring back option that you're stacking with.
That's a really good point. That's something that I hadn't really thought about in terms of like where they go. Like you can really push the guys to fall. The inverse is true, right? Where it's like you could push Kirk Cousins to fall a little bit because you already have JJ, right? Like,
well, if I think about it, that's kind of like the what you're saying is basically what happened to Patrick Mahomes and his pass catchers last year. Is that all of a sudden every single Chiefs pass catcher became much more expensive because everyone's trying to pair them and they keep taking them. Especially when we got week 17. Oh, look at this flashy game against Denver. I'll just do a little mini correlation. You get you get sniped.
I thought the year before too with McCole Hardman. McCole Hardman pushed his way into like the 5th and 4th round at one point, right?
And that's the Chiefs are the perfect example for the Ravens. If I don't know if Mark Jackson is going to go or if Lamar Jackson or Mark Andrews is going to go ahead, but with Travis Kelce, the teams that didn't draft Kelce but drafted Patrick Mahomes because Kelce went ahead and they're just like, oh, I think that Mahomes is a value. Now you have to get the wide receivers, and if you miss out on Mark Andrews with Lamar Jackson, like you have to get one of these guys. So like that's the people that are going to start reaching on some of these stacks. So this is like the next kind of layer of what I'm trying to think about and like how to adjust for rankings and like who might not necessarily make sense like between projections versus like ADP.
Love it. Yeah, Matt, this is evergreen statement right here. We got 50 some odd of us hanging out here. Silas throwing this out. Please do us a favor, a little housekeeping. I always forget to do this sort of stuff. I get excited talking. Do us a favor, hit that like, that subscribe, that follow, that notification bell. We are here every day of the week at 12 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes on that other Underdog Fantasy HQ channel talking baseball. All those links below. Thanks for hanging out, everybody.
You guys crush, by the way. Like, I love that you guys are doing content and crushing the BR drafts. If you guys haven't tried Battle Royale, like you gotta watch these guys and go figure out that game because they're in these streets.
We are in these streets.
Yeah, maybe a little too much. But the BRs are so much fun, and I think you can take a lot just before we get into the next, because I can talk for the next 10 days on this, the Venezuela Vikings, but just taking the concept of best ball and then making it into, for NFL, a weekly game because it's 1 week, but then MLB, NFL or MLB, NBA, it's daily. It's just a strictly DFS, but not a salary based game in that. And you can take those concepts and how to apply. It's fun. It really is fun. Yeah. And it's nice having a little bit of a sweat when you're drafting these teams along, 20 round draft. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, let me just do a quick BR. So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you think you have an edge in best ball, I think that you can apply it to BR. And if you are correct about that, you're gonna obviously like compound every single day on there. So give it a try if you have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Let's go ahead. Yeah, as here's actually here. This will be Saturday. I do not have a time on it. Hayden, are you privy to release a time?
We will not go live until the draft is over. Then the exact time is still TBD, but it will be this weekend. So expect it after the draft close. We don't want to launch a tournament where you're drafting before and after the draft. There's like that would just kind of ruin the teams that are drafting before or after, depending on your stance. So we want to kind of keep it clean. End tournaments before the draft, reopen tournaments once the draft's done.
Yeah, I think it's a very smart way of doing it. I think that's perfect.
I need to know who's Mr. Irrelevant so I can just get all the exposure to Brock Purdy. Yeah, all the next year's Brock Purdy. It's as simple as that. So,
Will
Levis, bud. Ever heard of him? That's true. Yeah, so that'll be Saturday. And actually, shout out Pete. Pete is going to be doing a little bit of a launch party for the paid subscribers on the VIP channel with Karain.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. All right. Minnesota Vikings, Jordan Addison. Say something nice so Numi can feel all warm and fuzzy inside, please.
Jordan Addison's really good. That's what I'll lead this thing off. People really kind of, I think, over-analyzed him, but his athletic ability does not translate to NFL Combine. He has a good feel. He has good ball tracking ability. He has good vision. You don't test any of that stuff at the Combine. He's definitely small, but I think just the way the NFL offenses are going, I think that he can kind of get away with it. I think that he has some ceiling limitations because he's not overly athletic in a straight line in like ways like Justin Jefferson and like Calvin Ridley to some extent are. But I think Jordan Addison is going to be a fantastic number 2 receiver. He's like a discounted version of Devonta Smith, who's like much better in my opinion. But Addison here, this is to me the landing spot. We know the Vikings want to pass the ball a ton. That defense is, I think, pretty suspect, especially in the secondary. And Addison, I think, can be a volume sponge, and I think that he's much better than KJ Osborne. So I think this is going to be a fine landing spot, and I will be certainly taking Jordan Addison because I don't think he's going to get the same steam. People are kind of overthinking him in the pre-draft process.
Love it. Are the Vikings the new
I was just
Ford Field? Are they the new Ford Field?
You took away what I was going to say when we got here. Is the fact that
sorry.
There's another NFC North team that plays in a dome, and our defense, you don't have to say is pretty suspect. Think it's suspect. It's suspect. It's not great. They haven't added on to it. Like U.S. Bank, the new Ford Field, the new Coors Field. I mean, it sets up for it. I mean, everything like you said is what I've read and saw is his size and the weight and everything about him is the worry. What I saw just on film and just watch him, I think it's going to fit perfect.
Yes.
It's going to be a perfect 1-2 punch. With Hawkinson still there, depending whatever we do at running back, I still think Cook is most likely gone, no matter of what the smoke and mirrors is of he loves it here in Minnesota, wants to retire in the Minnesota Hall of Fame, blah, yada, yada, yada. Still, I think that's just a fantastic 1-2 punch to put with Jefferson. I think this point right here that Tom puts up, if we consider like last year's ADP of Adam Thielen, of where now Addison's going, trying to take bias aside, he might be the one guy that it's just get after right away because I can see his just jumping, just steadily, just skyrocketing in an ADP. It's just a perfect landing spot. I was absolutely stoked. My dad wanted a defensive player. He's like, oh, we didn't need another wide receiver. We have KJ and all this. I'm like, well, KJ's a good wide receiver 3. So you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I thought it was perfect.
KJ feels like Joshua Palmer, where it's he's a good professional third wide receiver that,
great
he deserves
teammate, great guy,
good locker room guy. Builds the boys up.
Doesn't need to be our wide receiver too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
This is probably near and close to you, Hayden. I imagine you've seen him play. Did you go to USC games last year and see him play live and stuff like that?
Yes, I did. He was he was banged up at the end of the year, and I think that's part of the reason why his numbers were a little bit lower. He was also used differently at USC versus at Pitt, where he was a slot receiver. At USC, they kind of moved him around the formation. He got more screens, and I think someone getting screens, as long as they're still getting downfield targets, I think it's a good sign for their playmaking ability. That's why I was like high on Drake London. Is like he's not only doing screens, like someone like Wan'Dale Robinson's like all he does is screens, and that's concerning to me. But if you are a downfield threat and also getting screens, like that's a good sign that this coaching staff really likes you. And that's kind of how he was used at USC. There, I forget if I actually did it in the video, but our prospect video, he had this awesome route in the red zone, and it's kind of the Adam Thielen route where he like boogies out and then he like turns back towards the basically runs like a little curl back towards the pylon. Jordan Addison does that all the time. So I think that could be a little interesting angle. And Adam Thielen was not always the most athletic guy either, and he had tons of success. So love the landing spot for him, short term and long term. And I think Kirk Cousins is going to put up some pretty big numbers again here.
Yeah. Is this our favorite wide receiver out of like the rookie class so far? Like in terms of like ADP, how we're gonna, value?
He should be close to JSN. I'm not sure if he's going to actually get there in ADP, but I think that their ADP shouldn't be far apart. And I would take him multiple tiers ahead of Zay and Quentin Johnston. That goes based off a landing spot. But I also I gave 2 first-round grades. It was JSN and Addison. Everybody else was like second round. And so I'm going to stick to my evaluation, but I also think the landing spot's great.
I was very shocked. I can't remember if it was your guys' video or some of the other stuff I've been consuming, whatever. I watched him a little bit in college and stuff. I was very shocked at how good he was in contested catches for an undersized player.
Yep. He has good ball tracking ability and reliable hands. And I think that isn't an athletic trait. Does it show up in our spreadsheets for the combine? No. But to me, it's hard to win be awarded the best wide receiver and not be athletic. And so I think that he is athletic just in unique ways. And to me, contested catches would be
crafty. Like
100%.
Like it's something, again, you don't test and you don't put a weight on, but he just looks crafty and he looks like he's just in tune with his routes. He's a route runner, and that's perfect. And I think KOC coming from the McVay tree of, we're going to put our best guys in the positions to get the excel. And we're not just going to run and do plays, just dead plays. Like every single play is going to be valuable. I think that's perfect for him as well. I mean, he could be moving around that formation, and we've already seen what KOC's done there. So
I hate it so much that I'm a Jordan Addison guy now too, man. I might be wearing some purple this year. Yeah, it's not gonna be Huskies purple. It's gonna be that slightly shittier color that you guys wear.
Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, it's gonna be a disappointing purple. That's what we call it.
Disappointing purple.
Yeah, show me your Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson exposure. It's all going to be over 75% for this guy. Just kidding. Can't get that lucky with a 101, but yeah, we'll try.
Last one of the bunch in the skill positions, aka all we care about as sicko best ball players. Dalton Kincaid. There was an expectation from people, I think, that there was going to be a little bit of a tight end run, whether it came in the first round or the back end of the first round or the start of the second round. Was Kincaid your favorite tight end, Hayden?
Meyer and Kincaid, I've graded fairly similarly. I don't really like drafting tight ends in round 1. If I was running a team, they're just so volatile. And even the guys that we think are good kind of don't produce until later on in their career. So it's very tough. And what stinks about this is I always felt like Dawson Knox has been this close to truly breaking out. Yeah. And there was a chance that this would have been the year that Dawson Knox kind of takes a little bit of a leap. And Dawson Knox can play inline tight end, but he's not a complete ass kicker in that. So I'm a little bit worried about you have Kincaid, who's definitely a finesse guy, and Dawson Knox, who's kind of teetering on that. But it really stinks for us because I wanted Dalton Kincaid. I thought he was good enough as a receiver to kind of break out. But now he's just going to be splitting reps, and I'm not sure if I see the Bills running too many 2 tight end sets. They've always historically been 0 tight ends out there. So this really stinks. You have to move Dawson Knox down, and I'm going to be moving Kincaid down as well too.
Yeah, it's a very interesting landing spot because of the we were talking about the follow the money narrative with the running backs. Follow the money with Dawson Knox. They gave him like 31 million guaranteed, 4x52 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like he's not going to be there, right? So it was a very interesting pick for the Bills. One thing that someone said on one of the streams I was watching last night, I think it was the ship chasing one, is that there is a vacancy at slot wide receiver for the Bills.
Correct.
And as the season goes on, they could fill that with a guy who's running 80% of routes in Kincaid.
That is an upside case. I will warn that players, and like this would be like with Chigaquankwo, if you're not playing in 11 personnel, it's still very hard to be a tight end one. Like the tight end ones play in 11 personnel, and they're also in 12 personnel with the second tight end. They're the one that's not putting their hand in the dirt. They're going out to the slot. That's the tight end ones. If Kincaid's only going to be a slot receiver, that still would probably cap him as a tight end too. Now, obviously, we were talking about the Bills offense here, so maybe you can dream a little bit bigger and maybe he completely erases Dawson Knox, but I think there's a lot of things that would have to go right with him. So I think as a stacking partner late, he's fine, but I was really disappointed by Mayer falling out of the first round and Kincaid going into this landing spot because I'm on team punt tight ends. So I needed a couple of these guys to go to the right landing spot to feel more comfortable. So I think I'm going to really feel bad about some of the punt tight ends I'm going to be landing on, or maybe I'm going to have to rethink my strategy.
Fair enough.
I agree. I don't the tight ends in the first round are just shocking to me because I mean if you just look at history, I mean we got Travis Kelce round 3, we got George Kittle round 5, we got
Mark Andrews.
Sure the same draft it was Hayden Hurst in the first round and then Mark Andrews, and look who turned out to be better. Like the Ravens didn't even know who was better. They drafted so it's teams drafting tight ends, they're just like, oh, you know what I mean? Like it never seems to turn out where that.
But Newbie, let me remind you about a guy, one Eric Ebron.
Yeah. Oh yeah, came on late and he came on in the middle and for
beautiful pick, beautiful top 10 pick.
And the Vikings, who I would argue hit on a tight end and TJ Hawkinson, but they didn't get value. They traded him basically for a pick swap on day 2. So like TJ Hawkinson, I would guess if you evaluated or interviewed all the GMs, would argue Hawkinson's a top 5 tight end in the league, and that means a second round pick. DJ Moore, who's the 20th best wide receiver in the league. He's valued as a first round pick in the trade up from 9 to 1. So even when you hit on the Hawkinson stuff, it's still you're not getting the value. So it's very tough out here.
Yeah.
Would you prefer Kincaid or Trey McBride in our BBM right now?
I never thought McBride was good. So this is me. And I'm a player takes guy because I feel like I put in some of the work and I've learned from other people enough to kind of have a feel for what things are going. I'm not perfect. Nobody is, but I thought McBride was like a pretty bad athlete. And he was his production was because Colorado State's offense was so fluky. I think Kincaid moves way differently than Trey McBride. So I would still take Kincaid, especially because he's going to be a stacking partner. I'm not sure how much stacks I'm going to have with the Arizona Cardinals. And I think a lot of my strategy with the tight ends is I just want the correlation from the tight ends after I've drafted my quarterback. I want to pick the quarterback that I think is actually going to score a lot of fantasy points. I think I'm better at that. And then I'll just throw on the correlation later rather than trying to predict the breakout tight end and drafting his quarterback later. I'm going to be just basically sorting by the quarterback I drafted and just drafting wherever his tight end is afterwards at ADP. So I think I will draft some Josh Allen and then by default have to pick between Dawson Knox and Kincaid way later.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I like that a lot. What do you think just in terms of ADP to start to close to whatever? Tom has it here 186 and tight end 22. Does that kind of just sound about right as kind of a dart throw in that back end?
Yeah, I have Kincaid in my initial gut rankings as tight end 21. Did he have talk about Dawson Knox's landing spot? Dawson Knox complete rug pull here. He was going to be the tight end 12. Right. He's going to be what? Is he going to go ahead of Kincaid?
Yes, I think so.
It'll be quite close, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you that. How close are Knox and Kincaid in
18 and 22, something like that? I'm trying to think of examples of that we can even talk about because Very like I guess like the Patriots have had this at times, and we're gonna do it with like Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki is actually a perfect example. Like Hunter Henry's Dawson Knox and Kincaid is Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, different.
Yeah, I like
mean,
that.
I would rather take the Bills
versions.
Bills those Patriots. I mean, obviously, but it's
they did it 2 years ago or last year as well with Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. That still applies.
That's kind of the take I had. I was drafting Hunter Henry the first season they were together, and I think that his ADP was after Jonnu Smith, because Jonnu Smith is the guy that like, oh, he might play in the slot, he might be motioned around the offense and stuff. Well, that guy he's not on the field or running the routes in like 11 personnel or when they are in the red area, and that's a concern. So like that's where maybe I'm going to be a Dawson Knox guy after his ADP falls, but just a brutal landing spot for all involved.
Yeah. I was gonna ask one more Dalton Kincaid question, but I don't really care anymore. I don't think I've kind of soured on. Yeah, I'm sad now too. Like I'm soured on it now too.
And the other tight ends, like the rookie tight ends, Darnell Washington, I think is going to take some time to be a receiving tight end. So I think that he might be better real life than fantasy. And then like Sam Laporta, who's got some steam, he's athletic, but he's really small, and he kind of runs into the same situation like as like Chicken Kwanku. Maybe he can be like a tight end too, because he can be like a slot guy. But if he's not putting his hand in the dirt, he's not going to be out there for all that snaps. His upside might be capped. The guy that I'm kind of got my fingers up is Luke Musgrave, who got some like round one mock draft buzz at the very last second. He's really athletic and he's big enough to possibly be the guy that kind of sneaks in here. So we'll see what his landing spot is, but Luke Musgrave might be like the sleeper rookie tight end that maybe has gone overlooked among like a pretty good wide receiver or tight end class.
Cool. No, I like that shout for sure. Any other guys we're going to be looking for on day 2 here? Day 2 getting underway in a couple of hours. Are you guys doing any content day 2 related? Are you going to be tweeting through it? What's your plan?
I'm going to tweet through it. I'm going to go on a couple shows for some guest spots. I'm looking for Jalen Hyatt and see where he's going to go. I'm going to guess Jonathan Mingo surprises people on how high Jonathan Mingo goes. Cedric Tillman's kind of same boat. We'll see if Josh Downs goes somewhere, but Josh Downs is like, especially with the way Best Ball Mania 4 is constructed, I struggle to see Josh Downs being like the guy you need because he's so small and slot only. So like to me, Cedric Tillman, Jonathan Mingo, Jalen Hyatt, maybe there's easier paths of them breaking out. So those would be like the 3 receivers that I'm like really hooking go to a good landing spot tonight.
Cool. And then any day 2 running backs and or Will Levis and Hooker today?
Will Levis is done. Don't have to worry about him. Hooker, I think we can probably put him to bed for this next year. So no on the quarterbacks. Yeah, the huge day for running backs. If you don't get your name called today, that'll be pretty interesting because I think there would probably be 6 or 7 running backs through round 3. So all of a sudden, like maybe you can get the Dameon Pierce love where like you're still like the running back 13 in your draft class, but breaks out. But running back super landing spot dependent. I thought that Zach Charbonnet was actually good at the game. And my sleeper running back, who's not necessarily a sleeper, but Kendre Miller got a lot of love. And I thought that his tape was good. He's 215 pounds. And a lot of the breakout tight running backs that people are kind of hyping up are very small. Kendre Miller might have the burst and the size, but he did not get the hype because of an injury throughout the pre-draft process. But he was an early declare from TCU. I am hoping and expecting that he goes earlier than expected.
I think I was inverted friend of the show there. Volume player on the site is hoping the same because he has something like 40-something% of him. I saw in the big board. So he took a really exploitative stance on him early. Hayden, any last parting words, anything on the structure, anything you want to get off your chest, confess to us?
Yeah, I got one more thing.
Okay.
I've seen people say that I was anti week 17 and thought that it didn't matter. I have one of the longest columns in week 17 history going over why I thought it mattered, which ones to stack, ranking them and stuff. So get out of here that I was like anti week 17. Josh and I thought on that one stream that it was hilarious that we were like getting to the point where like we have to draft Zach Ertz versus Tyler Algier. We weren't saying that that was like the worst thing. By the way, don't draft Zach Ertz that early. That was the actual problem with that draft pick. But I think that week 17 does matter. So I just want to get that off my chest. Don't say that I was anti-week 17. I think it does matter, and I will be drafting for week 17 this year, just maybe a little less so compared to last year. That's it.
I love it. Heard it here definitively and first that Hayden Winks confirmed week 17, bro. Get the shirts printed. He will be wearing one on Underdog Fantasy channel. Hayden, appreciate you so much for doing this. Anytime you can carve out any time in your day, we are more than happy to have you. Very insightful on the first round. Very insightful with a peek behind the curtain on the structure there. A lot of clarity for people. I think the transparency that Underdog shows both with you, Rudman, Mamba, like coming on and talking through stuff with us, whether it be here or in the Discord, it's an incredible dynamic and rapport that everyone's building together. And we're so thankful to have it. So thank you for being here, and enjoy the drafts this weekend. And BBM4 goes live on Saturday on behalf of Hayden, myself, and New Me, everybody's favorite time of the show, the end. Peace.